All right, so listen to this. A guy in India, he drops his iPhone, like right into a temple donation box. You'd think that's kind of where the story ends,
A
right?
little mishap, maybe get it back, no big
Well,
deal.
not exactly. The temple's saying, nope, the phone belongs to the deity now. It's like divine intervention, right?
Talk about an upgrade.
So we're going to dive into this article from India today. This whole thing happened at a temple, the Arulmigu Kandaswamy Temple in Tirupur near Chennai. And, it really gets you thinking about how technology and tradition, even law, kind of all clash in a situation like this.
It's almost like a modern day offering to the gods,
Yeah.
But with like data plans and app updates.
Right. So picture this. Our guy, Dinesh, he's at the temple making an offering, and boom, his iPhone takes a dive right into the Hundi. You know that donation box you see at temples?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's not just like any old box.
No, not at all. The Hundi, it's like anything you put in there, intentional or not, it's considered the deity's property.
So, Dinesh, understandably, he's freaking out a little, right? He asks for his phone back.
Oh, I bet.
And the temple officials, they're like, sorry, bud, it's with the deity now.
No kidding.
It's like getting bad reception, but from the divine. They did let him get his data off the phone, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I guess they figured, losing all your contacts and pictures and stuff, that'd be a real pain.
Right. But the actual phone, that's off limits. Then there's another layer to this. A government minister, PK Sakar Babu, he chimed in, basically saying anything in the Hundi, it's the deities, no matter what. And this is the interesting part, he said he'd think about compensating Dinesh for the phone.
Oh, wow. So on the one hand, the phone's like divinely claimed.
Yeah.
But then there's this possibility of like modern day compensation.
Yeah.
And like even within these ancient traditions, there's room for a little wiggle room.
Exactly. It might not be as simple as phone goes in, phone becomes divine property, end of story.
Right, right. Makes you think. How do these, centuries old customs deal with something like a smartphone?
Well, and speaking of that, there was actually a similar thing that happened in Kerala, but with a totally different outcome. This time, it was a woman, and she accidentally dropped her gold chain in the donation box. At this temple, the Sri Dandayuthapani Swami Temple in Palani, but instead of just keeping the chain, they actually checked the security footage to make sure it was an accident.
Wow.
And then, get this, the chairman of the temple, he actually bought her a new chain. Same value and everything.
So two kind of similar situations, right? Accidental offerings, but two totally different responses. What do you think accounts for that?
It's a great question, and it's exactly what we're going to get into next.
It's really interesting to think about, isn't it? Like, what makes the difference in these cases?
Yeah, what makes one temple say, hey, it's the deities now, and another one go out and buy a replacement?
Could it be like the value of the thing? A gold chain versus a smartphone?
That's a good point. Or maybe it's about the temple itself, like how much money they have. Or maybe even just the people in charge, their own beliefs.
Right, right. It shows you that even with these ancient traditions, there's still a human element there.
Yeah, it's not just like some automatic rule book. It makes me wonder, though, does the law in India even say anything about this stuff?
It actually does. There's this whole set of rules from 1975. They're called the Installation, Safeguarding, and Accounting of Hundial Rules.
Okay, catchy title.
And basically, they say that once something's in that donation box, it belongs to the temple. No takebacks.
Wow, so it's not just about religious beliefs then, it's actually like the law of the land.
Exactly.
Which makes things even more complicated, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely, because now you've got this potential conflict between like someone's personal property rights and this long-standing religious tradition.
Yeah, I mean, these laws were written decades ago, right? Back when a smartphone was like science fiction.
Right. And now we've got these devices. They're basically extensions of ourselves. They hold so much personal data, photos, memories.
Yeah, almost like two different worlds colliding.
Exactly.
We've got these ancient religious practices.
These are years old.
And then this like super fast-moving world of technology.
Changing everything.
So what do you think? What's the takeaway for our listeners here?
Well, first of all, I think it shows how important it is to understand different cultures. In India, these donation boxes, they're not just like any old container. They have this deep religious and legal significance.
Right, something that seems simple to us, like making an offering, it can have all these unexpected consequences in a different culture.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that our own way of doing things, it's not the only way. And sometimes understanding those differences, it could be really important.
Especially in a world that's getting more and more connected.
Exactly. And I think it also makes us think about our own assumptions. what seems strange to us might be perfectly normal somewhere else.
It's about being curious and open to learning new things.
Absolutely. And in this case, it's about appreciating the complexities of a culture where technology and tradition are kind of figuring things out together.
It really does make you think, like, how would our own culture look to someone from a completely different background?
Yeah, it's like looking in a mirror, almost. But the mirror showing you someone else's reflection. And you start thinking, huh, they probably see things pretty differently than I do.
Exactly. And this whole iPhone and the Hundi thing, it's really just one tiny example of this much bigger trend. Technology and tradition, they're bumping into each other all over the world.
And creating some interesting situations along the way. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the big question you want to leave our listeners with, something to really chew on?
Well, here's what I keep coming back to. Technology's not slowing down, right? It's just going to keep getting faster and more advanced. So how are traditions and laws going to adapt? Are we going to see more clashes like this? Or will we find a way to, like, blend the old and the new? That's a great question. It really makes you realize that this isn't just about a lost phone. It's about these bigger questions of how we deal with change, how we make sense of a world where things are always evolving.
Yeah, where the lines get blurry between the physical and the digital, the sacred and the everyday.
Exactly.
And I think finding that balance, that harmony, it comes down to communication, understanding different perspectives,
Yeah.
and being open to change.
Because that's how traditions evolve, right? They have to adapt to stay relevant.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there, if you ever find yourself at a temple in India, maybe think twice before you pull out your phone near that donation box.
Yeah, or at least make sure it's tucked away safe and sound.
Yeah.
You never know when an offering might take on a whole new meaning.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been fascinating to explore this intersection of technology, tradition, and law, and we hope it's given you some food for thought.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that the world's a complex and constantly changing place. And sometimes the most unexpected things can happen.
And those unexpected things can lead to some really interesting conversations. Thanks again for listening.
Until next time.